Hey, how you doing? Today I was wanting to talk about something I've been going through my mind quite a bit in the last month, and it's about psychological evolution, and if there is such a thing as psychological evolution. And maybe let me explain a little bit so people can understand what I'm actually talking about, what I actually mean about psychological evolution. Now, this is something that everybody does because psychological evolution in the society, in the minds of people, is something that we do every day in our work, that we do. It's kind of like a belief, a thought that we have about how the world works and how we attain knowledge, right? So, the accumulation of knowledge and the idea that accumulating knowledge and accumulating thought in time is going to produce, is going to make man have salvation, that's going to be the salvation of man. And this idea is kind of built into us, into many people through the society, whether we know it either way. We're doing it for our own means of salvation, which to a lot of people, salvation is just, having security, having, food on the table, and having all these things because they're kind of just living a lower life. They're not really living their higher spiritual life. But then there are people that have, have more of an understanding of things and spirituality, and they believe that through this attainment of knowledge and psychological thought and all these things, there's going to be an evolution of the mind over a period of time where man finally has salvation. Now, I don't believe there's a psychological evolution because to me it seems that there's no way to attain this higher state, to attain to God through thought, because the only way to do it in evolution, it takes time and it takes thought to be able to do that. And I don't believe that that's possible at all. And through what I've experienced, there's actually only an end to the actual self that thinks that it is evolving, that wants to be trying to do that. Now, when we really begin to really get deep down and start taking a look at what we really are and what's making up our thoughts, we see that our thoughts are coming, and they're telling us that we need security, and they're telling us that we can evolve through this knowledge and that it can make us better and better. But it's not making us better and better. Man is still, full of anger and fear, and he's not been able to attain to this through time. And if we continue to try to do this through evolution, then we'll probably go on another 1,000 years, several, thousands of years. But we see, in the same state, because there's no way to attain to that through an evolution. The only way to attain to this is through the end of the thought, because the thought is what's creating the time. Our thoughts about trying to save ourselves, and our thoughts about who we think we are, all of these things are creating time. And it makes us continue on in this sort of illusory state, this illusory self. And until we actually come to the end of that, which Jesus tells us that we need to die to ourself, and that's dying to the self that creates the time and putting an end and coming to the end of all of this suffering, all of this anger, and everything that makes up this self. So the psychological evolution, in a sense, it has been going on, but the psychological evolution is actually only carrying the mind. It's not evolving actually into something higher. It actually is a de-evolution, because the more knowledge, the further you get away from your spirit, the further you get away from what God really is and our real self, and the more knowledge that you pile on, you're actually moving further and further away, even though you may think, and have all these thoughts and knowledge that you are attaining to something, you're actually moving further away. So it's an end of all the thought, and moving beyond that through stillness. Through stillness, seeing a new light, receiving a new revelation, receiving a new idea, and it's coming from God. This is coming from our real self. It's not coming from the illusory self. So, with computers and artificial intelligence and all of these things we have coming, think about it, we're going to have, our jobs are going to be taken. They're already projecting by 2050 that 52% of all jobs will be gone because of robots and artificial intelligence and, automation, all of these things, these technical things that we've been able to create. Now, I'm not talking about the end of all of that, because obviously we've needed some of those things we've needed this evolution of thought and mind to produce these technical things. But what I'm talking about is the end of this illusory self and the attachment to believing that we are those things, to believing that we are our job. Like believing that without your job, you're nobody, because you're so attached to that, it makes up your entire identity. And it creates suffering, and it creates fear. So I'm talking about an end to the fear, the end to the thoughts of suffering, fear, depression, and anxiety. Now, we do need these thoughts to, produce things in other areas, but this area that I'm talking about here, we're talking about the area of the spirit here, and these blocks to the spirit. So, what are we going to do? What are we going to do when, all of the robots and all of these things have taken all of our jobs? People are so attached to their jobs and believing that that's who they are, that's all that I'm calling for. All that I'm calling for is that we go beyond our job. We can continue working our jobs and continue doing our things. It doesn't mean we have to leave. It just means that we're discovering who we really are. We're discovering something beyond what we've thought that we are, the paradigms that we think that we are, and discovering what we really are, so that maybe when all of these things do disappear and the robots and the automation and all of these things have taken our jobs, which really they're only doing it so that we can be freed up, so that we can find ourselves. So this is the dilemma that's facing us now, is that we're being called upon, when all of these things are going to happen, is to transform ourselves and change. And that's what we're going to have to do to be able to survive, to see that we're not all of these things and that we can continue to go on without jobs, and there's a whole other world for us to discover who we really are and really become who we really are and continue in that, which is something eternal. It's something great and marvelous, and it's a beautiful thing. So that's what God has shown me, is that He is putting me here, and one of my giftings, and one of the things that I am to be doing, recognizing all of these things and seeing all of these things, is helping people to transform, to begin the process of being able to transform into this if they want to. So that's why I'm here, and God bless.